Before you take someone as your friend, observe him and when he is angered. His conduct under the pressure will speak volumes of his nature. And so anger, in a way, facilitates what comes out of a person. As in, if you are a certain way, when you get angry, and the things that you say and the things that you do when you're angry is going to be the reflection of your character. And then it's you blew the lid off. You're showing, when a soda explodes because there's too much pressure, whatever the soda is in the bottle is going to come out at the top. So whatever in you is going to come out as well. When a person constantly loses his temper, he loses his rational sense as well. The very basis of his relationship with God can become endangered, for there is nothing to restrain him. Thus, the Talmud states, the man who loses himself to anger is considered to have worshipped idols, right? And why do they make that comparison? If you think about it logically, when you're really, really angry, when you're fuming, right, you got smoke coming out of the ears, there is no God. God is there to help instruct you to act moral, to do right and wrong. He's irrelevant. Whatever I feel is so consuming that I'm just going to do whatever it is that I feel. Therefore, it is your anger that's the God in that moment and not actually God. When a person becomes unrestricted, he approaches idolatry. Unable to think clearly, a man who is lost in fury loses perspective. The crooked path appears straight, and the forbidden seems permissible. Insults, quarreling, and slander are no longer distant from him. They do. Although an otherwise sensitive man, an angry person may, in his fury, come even to humiliate others publicly. When no longer guided by reason, even in the most unspeakable acts can come within reach. And this is for me, my one time that I did get angry this week. By the way, anger isn't always, which is another conversation. It doesn't always manifest itself like in rage. But with the one time I did get angry this week, I responded and I spoke in a way that I didn't want to, and I had to go and apologize to that person because I spoke in a way that I shouldn't have, and it was coming really from an anger. And it wasn't what I said. I didn't really mean what I said. I said it because I was upset. So it wasn't good. You can do things that you don't want to do and you don't mean when you're angry.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that when someone's upset and then they say things that they didn't mean it or whatever, do you think it's actually that they didn't mean it? Because technically if you said it, technically wasn't it inside of you?
So yes and no, because in that it's not, there isn't just one size fits all. And sometimes, right, a person gets really angry and they say, it comes out and they say, and I can't stand when you do da. And there's this, I was just like, wow, you never said that before. It's yeah, because I've been holding that in. And it was only the anger that made me say that, how many times you've been a bad friend, whatever. So there are times where, yeah, that's true. And there are other times where anger causes you to be hurt, that you want to cause hurt and harm to the other person. So you say things you don't mean, really just because you want to just get back at them. So those are the two angles. So it's not one size fits all, right? And you with your self-awareness can decipher whether or not, is that really how I think, or I really didn't mean what I said. I just wanted to hurt the other person because they hurt me. So one size definitely doesn't fit all on that.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
But there's the danger that if you really, you feel a certain way about someone and it should never be out there, right? You have to be very careful. I got so angry that I said something that I really didn't, that I didn't want people to know about, that I felt that way about that person. I'm working on how I feel towards that person and I didn't want people to know, but I got angry and I said it, so you gotta be very careful. Quieted anger, its own reward. Elijah the prophet said, if you never come to anger, you will never come to sin. Page 34. The Talmud in Psachim stresses the consequences of falling prey to the wrath. Whoever loses his temper, if he's a scholar, he will lose his wisdom. If he's a prophet, he'll lose his Holy Spirit. Indeed, the Gemara warns that a man's unbridled fury can potentially destroy his life. And this is very true in terms of relationships. Right? The number one thing that can really, really ruin relationships is anger. Because even if a person is selfish or whatever, he has other issues, it's the anger that will make these things, it will aggravate these things, and they'll manifest a lot more. Sefer HaChasidim illustrates how one man who controlled his anger saved himself from destroying his family. There was once a son who was an extraordinarily respectful to his father. On his deathbed, the father said, "My son, you honor me in my lifetime, and now you must honor me after my death. I command you, if you should ever be overcome by anger, hold your anger in overnight." After his father's death, the son was forced to embark on a prolonged journey, which took him to distant lands for 10 years. Unbeknownst to him, The wife he left behind was expecting a child. After his years of absence, the husband returned home unannounced, hoping to joyously surprise his wife. But he approached his bedchamber and he saw the wife embracing a handsome young man, a stranger. The husband became fiercely jealous and reached for his dagger. He then suddenly remembered that the pledge he made to his father, hold on to his rage overnight. It's a really intense story. The next day, he was shocked to discover that the young man in his wife's embrace was none other than his own son, the child that his wife bore during his long absence. The man was thus saving and tragically slaughtering his own family. That is a crazy, crazy intense story, but it's, makes me think of the Mishnah, Havi Misunim Badim, that a person should be slow in judgment. And this is true of all things. When you're feeling a certain strong emotion, don't act, don't respond, don't say anything in that moment, because you need to give yourself time to really collect all the facts. A lot of times we get angry, we end up speaking, we don't understand what we're talking to. We don't know all the facts of the story, don't know what really happened, we don't know the other person's perspective. We haven't had time to reflect on the other person's perspective or really gather all that's going on over there. And that is that buffer zone that will really, really help a person make sure that they might just say, you know what, it might not even be worth it. I'll give myself time to think on it, it might not even be worth it. But that's a crazy story, wild story. A weighted balance. Rambam teaches in Hilchos Deos that a person should balance his personality traits, avoiding the extremes of any one trait. He should endeavor to be strong yet flexible, compassionate yet firm. Rambam notes, however, one exception to this rule in reference to anger. There is no middle way. A person must strive rather for the opposite extreme, avoiding wrath even in situations where anger is indeed justifiable. Now, why do you think that's so? Why do you think that he's saying that? Even if anger would be justified, it would be better not to even delve into the wrath.
I think it's not for you to decide if it's justifiable. Like, you're not the one who gives out punishment in this world, you know?
So yeah, I hear that. I mean, Shlomo Melech does say there's a time for everything under the sun. There are times where even Hashem, they said, act in his wrath to avenge, and there are justifiable times out there, right? We might not be the one to know whether it is or isn't. My thought was that because anger is so destructive, we say sometimes you act a certain way just to condition yourself to be that way, right? As in, even if it's kind of like, you technically, al pi halacha, you can say lashon hara about a non-Jew. Technically, you can. The reason you shouldn't is because when you speak lashon hara, you're getting in the habit of doing it, and eventually you'll come to speak lashon hara about another Jew. So I think like anger is one of those things that is so contagious that when you get into that mode of anger, it'd be very easy. You're conditioning yourself to be okay with it, and then you can very easily use it against someone you shouldn't. You know what I mean? Yeah, Jules.
Also, like when you're in the moment, like it could be justifiable in the moment, but like don't act on it, because when you look back on it, you realize kind of how silly I feel. Like in the experiences that I have that I've gotten angry, I look back on it now and like laugh because I was so absurd. It's like I was being so silly. So I think in that moment, like that's all that felt justifiable to me. But realistically, looking at it from an outside perspective, like it was so minuscule. What's that word?
Minuscule, yeah.
Minuscule.
It's a good point, that like I can think of time. I'm sure we could all think about times in our life where like we got really angry, and like
Yeah.
a couple of years later, and you're like,
No, even like immediately after, like the situation I'm thinking of, I was upset with Jonathan, but like this was when we were in Brazil. I was super stressed and like whatever. Like we had spent 3 months together in an apartment the size of a shoebox with like no air conditioning for like months. And then like I was so angry at him, and he like kept laughing at me when I was like angry, and like I don't think I've ever gotten that angry before. And like the thing that hurt me the most was the fact that he was laughing, and then it made sense because he was seeing me like a beast, and then like I didn't see myself like that. And then like from an outside perspective, days like even he like left my room and I was sobbing, and then like I was telling the story to my friend and I started to laugh because it's so silly, but in the moment it was so like necessary. Not necessary, but
I remember that story actually. That's what anger does to a person. That's what literally it does. And then because you're not thinking straight, when you think straight afterwards, you're like, you know what? I kind of looked like an idiot there when I was,
I keep playing it from an outside perspective. It's so funny. In the moment I was so angry, but like now seeing myself like that, it was really funny.
So yeah, all excellent points. Okay, so similarly in the Sefer HaRinos it writes, the trait of anger is undeniably evil. Its nature to wild and unclean animals, beasts, and birds of prey. The angry man is similar to a viper whose food, the dust of the earth, is available to it wherever the bird travels. So too, the angry man may easily find cause to become abrasive regardless of the situation he finds himself in. And then that's totally like inappropriate, when you're like getting angry over something that is like, you see someone in like a public area and you're like, yo, what's wrong with you? It's because they don't have control. They've conditioned themselves to be a certain way, so they just can't turn it on and off as they please. Anger reaches outside itself. Anger doesn't remain inside itself. It affects those who live around it as well. King Shlomo advised, do not associate with a man of temper, and do not come near a man of wrath, lest you learn from his ways and endanger your soul. Ladies, when looking for shidduchim, you want to find guys who are not short-tempered. Very, very important. Anger is indeed contagious. By associating with a short-tempered person, one may also come to adopt this nature. Similarly, it is not only the angry person himself who can be led to transgression, for one man's anger can bring others to sin also. The Talmud in Gittin warns that a man should be exceedingly careful not to show anger in the presence of his wife, lest she become to desecrate the Shabbos. Whoa. Rashi explains that a wife who lives in fear of her husband's rage may, in order to protect herself, come to light candles or finish cooking after the onset of Shabbos. Indeed, in many ways, the repercussions of a man's anger reach far beyond himself. Yes, ladies, very much. Make sure you do not, you find a man who does not struggle with that trait of anger. So I think the homework for this week, right? Last week we were talking about whether or not to delve into anger or not. I want to continue on that theme. I want to try something new. Is that when you feel angry, or if you feel angry, right, to try to hold your tongue and be quiet for 60 seconds, as in don't respond with anything. Don't even like literally, if you feel yourself getting upset, to just literally be quiet and give yourself the grace period of time, practicing to just hold your tongue. Don't say anything. Don't even apologize. Just stay quiet for 60 seconds minimum before responding. Having Misuni Bedin, to be slow in your judgment, to be slow in your response, to condition ourselves to hold the tongue and maintain silence in that moment, sort of overnight. What do you guys think? Yes, Sabrina.
Something that I wonder is like how sometimes like anger, like if it's not like expressed in a way, then it can like bottle up and then like people explode. So like what would be a way to like avoid that happening?
So 10 out of 10 times, if something upsets a person, if you have emotional, like if there's conflict, it always needs to be addressed. It's never good to swallow that. The question is, how do you do that, right? An inappropriate way would be to lash out in anger, right? And that happens when you respond right away. But if you hold onto your tongue and you give yourself that grace period, you can sort of recollect yourself, and then you can approach the situation in a more calm way. It'll be more constructive also. So you absolutely should address the rage. It's not swallowing it forever. It's addressing it after you've allowed the tension to sort of subdue itself a little bit. The heightened feelings of the temper, to give yourself that grace period, and then after the grace period, then you come and you address the situation. But you should always address the situation. Keep things inside; they will always build up. Yeah. Okay, what do you guys think? Game on? Okay, it's good to see everyone. Happy football day.